Hi, I'm Lisa Smith, the Services Director.
And I'm Debbie Sobansky. I'm the Client Services Director in Benton Harbor. And in this particular module, we're going to be talking about a variety of things. One of them are the services that we offer, our limitations of services, that relationship between a consultant and a client, and also confidentiality. So first of all, as far as our services go, we offer a variety of services. As far as medical, we offer pregnancy testing, ultrasounds, and STI testing and treatment. We also offer educational and material support to clients that come through our doors. We have a student outreach for our communities, as well as we have a men's mentoring program.
And then I was going to talk about the scope of services because we want to be really careful with our clients to make sure that we're staying within our scope. We're primarily a pregnancy resource center that also works with guys and families, and so we want to be sure that we are helping our clients but not extending beyond our scope of services. When we go beyond our scope of services, that can in a sense hurt our clients instead of helping them when we do it for them instead of them doing it. So an example would be when we have a client and they need a resource that we don't offer, like food or shelter or housing, we would refer them out to an outside agency because they need to take that step in that direction. We don't want to do that for them. We don't want to contact the food pantry or contact the housing place. We want to make sure that they're doing that.
Because that helps for them to become more independent. And
yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes when you're giving too much, you're hurting them.
Right. And it also can hurt you because our clients, if they disappoint you in what they're, in the steps that they're taking after you've done it for them, if they don't follow through, if they, you set up a meeting and then they don't show up, then you're going to be this is going to be frustrating. You don't want to be, but you just will. And the other thing too is, we love our clients so much, so there is something in us that wants to do that, wants to go the extra mile for them, but it's just better if they can take those steps on their own.
So one of the great perks with our program is that you develop relationships with your clients. And I will say that some clients you're going to readily just connect and you're going to just love them, and you can't wait to see them every week. Those clients, oftentimes you can really communicate really well, but some of them will be talkative and you can draw them out. But then there will be some clients who are more difficult. They may just answer your questions or with a one-word answer or not seem to be engaged. So just be prepared for that, because it doesn't always mean that you're doing something wrong or that they don't like you, but they all come from so many different backgrounds and communication styles, and so just be aware of that.
Yeah, and don't feel bad if you need to have another consultant step into that role. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I've seen many, many times is that divine appointment. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it seems like God absolutely pairs up a person with somebody that just really meshes with them, or somebody that's gone through a similar life experience. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is we really want you, just as we're equipping these clients and giving them their resources, we want you to be able to leave work at work. I know this is a volunteer position, but you don't have to take that home with you. There are people praying for your clients, and if you can equip them and talk to them in that hour that you have, that is your responsibility. And then when you're able to go home, it's not such a burden on you. Good. Yeah.
I also want to encourage you. I recently had a consultant come up to me and she said she'd been seeing this one client who's a very difficult client, and this client had been bounced around from different consultants over a period of a year. She didn't always come consistently, but she just had a lot of heavy problems. And this consultant finally, sometimes you're going to get a client because that was the only slot open for that client to get an appointment. And as Lisa said, sometimes it may not be a great fit. But I had this one consultant the other day told me, I just don't feel comfortable working with her. And I told her, I'm so glad you told me that, because I want to know that, so that we can get you fit with the right people that you feel confident with.
So very important. Yeah, you got to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then if you find yourself in a situation that you just feel like this is more than you can handle, they're talking about really deep personal things or past abuse, those kinds of things, I think it's probably best to come talk to one of us, and we can talk about if it's a good time to refer them to professional counselor or those kinds of things. We do need to be setting boundaries with our clients too. We don't give out our personal phone number. We don't be friends on Facebook with them and social media. We recommend a year to be with your client before you do that, because you do end up with really deep relationships with some of your clients, and so it can be appropriate to start to make personal connections. But as a guideline, we suggest a year, just to make sure that person is safe and everything in that relationship would be a safe. We don't want them calling you in the middle of the night. We don't want them hacking your Facebook or saying inappropriate things on there, so we just want to be careful about that.
So there may be sometimes that a client shares with you that she needs something that we perhaps don't have here, or she hasn't earned enough boutique bucks to actually purchase it here, and you may feel compelled to, you feel so sorry for her, and you might feel so compelled to, like, that next week you go out and purchase it for her and then bring it to your next appointment. But I really discourage you from doing that. Again, we want our clients to learn to become independent and not and take responsibility for their own needs and life.
And it's a protection over the ministry too, because if that person who's gotten this special gift tells her friends, then that can get around, and then they can expect that, and that can make us feel worse. So we do just have to be careful. Thanks for bringing that up, Debs. That's a really good point.
Before we get started, does anyone have any prayer requests?
Well, I have this client that I've been working with at LifePlan, and she just has so many things going on. Her name is Mary, and she's already got 2 kids, and now she's pregnant and I don't know, she lives right nearby. She's got brown hair, and she's a single mom, and she wears a ponytail all the time. She lives right over here. You might have seen her before.
I have seen her. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just, if we could pray for her.
Asking for prayer for your clients might seem like the right thing to do, but you should never do it in a way that gives out any information about the client. The best way to ask for prayer is to simply say, "Please pray for my clients at LifePlan." Be careful never to talk specifically about any of your clients with anyone away from the center.
Oh, where's my coffee? Who left this Bertha Blue file on the table?
Be very careful with all client forms and files while in the building. If you have to leave a file somewhere, be sure to flip it over so the name is not showing. And please, don't ever shout out a client's name in the building. The best thing to do with your files is put them away as soon as possible.
Oh look, did you see what your client posted on Facebook? We're Facebook friends, you know.
Really? I'm going to send her a friend request right now. Maybe she'll be my friend.
I'm going to post on her timeline about our last session. It was so good. How's this? I love seeing you at LifePlan today. Can't wait until next time when we can talk more about your boyfriend.
Oh, look, she's on Instagram. I'm going to follow her. Look at the picture. That's not her boyfriend, is it? Can't let that go. I'm going to reply. Who's that? That's not your boyfriend. Remember how we talked about being faithful last week at LifePlan?
I'm so glad we're able to use social media to minister to our clients.
Actually, social media is a great way to minister to our clients, but only through the LifePlan page, and never by singling out a client. In fact, we recommend you not be connected to any of your clients on any social media platforms until they have been your clients for at least a year and you have a solid relationship. Even then, you should never post about LifePlan or about anything you have discussed anywhere where people can see.
We also suggest that you never use your personal phone to contact a client. If you have to make a phone call and you are not at one of the centers, use *67 before dialing the number, and that will hide your number. If they don't answer you, you can then leave a message telling them that you will call back in 5 minutes so they know to expect your call. This helps protect you and your privacy as a volunteer.
How are you? It's so good to see you. Oh my goodness, this is my client. This is Beatrice. I haven't seen you since our last appointment. How you been? Have you told your boyfriend yet your birthday? Have you told your parents? Are you Beatrice's mom?
I'm her mother. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Nice to meet
So
you.
you know
We
some
love
things
her.
that I don't know, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, she's been coming to see me. She's, just a little bit pregnant, hey? And we've been doing really well. I was hoping that she'd,
Well, I'm glad
people know.
she's your friend more than mine.
When we see our clients in public, it's really hard to not want to go up and talk to them. But remember, our relationship with them is confidential, and we need to do all we can to keep it that way. You can smile at your client, but don't be the one to initiate the contact, and never say anything about LifePlan unless your client does first. Even then, don't ever talk about what you guys are doing together at LifePlan or any of the issues your client has had.
You can help prepare your client ahead of time for this by explaining to your client during a session what will happen if you see your client in public. You can say something like this: if I see you in public, I am not going to talk to you unless you talk to me first. This is because I want to protect your privacy in case you don't want anyone to know that you are coming to LifePlan. If you want to talk to me though, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'm just going to leave that up to you and what you feel most comfortable with.
Agnes, it's so nice to meet you today. I'm going to have you fill out this form. But you know what? Your mom's already told me so much about your situation.
She has?
Your boyfriend sounds like a real jerk.
Oh my
And,
word. How do you know my mom?
I don't know what you want to tell me today, but, feel free. Anything you want to tell me.
Well, I'm not first of all, could you tell me how you know my mom?
Oh, we're best friends.
Oh, so did she tell you over coffee or something?
Yeah, we talk. I mean, we prayed for you many times in your situation.
That's interesting. So do I even need to fill this out?
You
then?
should fill it out. I think you need to fill it out, but just know that, whatever you need to tell me, I probably already know.
Having a relationship with somebody your client is related to creates a conflict of interest. It will be really hard for you to be objective in this situation and to truly have your client's best interests in mind. When you discover this conflict of interest, you should find a new consultant for this client as soon as you can. If the client feels more comfortable with someone she knows, she can make the decision to keep you as a consultant.
So as we've been preparing for this training, we actually came up with a few things that we had never even thought about as far as confidentiality goes with receptionists. So why don't you...
Yeah, so I feel like we want to be sure to keep their information private because they're in a public space when they come in. Mm-hmm. So the receptionist probably needs to make sure that she doesn't, say their name out loud along with their phone number because that's demographic information along with their name. So you can ask them to confirm their name, and then you can also ask them to confirm their phone number instead of repeating it back to them.
And you're referring to somebody who's called in.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then when people come into the waiting room, again, it's a public space. So we're going to let that client steer the conversation instead of us, like asking them questions or leading them into something they might not feel comfortable sharing, especially if there's another client in the room or several volunteers or something like that. So, Debs, let's talk about when a person first comes in the door and we aren't sure who they are.
Okay, so I would really encourage you to just ask the client who they are instead of saying, "Are you so-and-so?" when you're expecting her to show up. Allow them to give you that information, especially if there's someone else another client in the building or right in that room.
When we're talking about clients' charts, what we want to do is we expect receptionists to be very similar to consultants and keep all that information confidential. As a receptionist, you'll see all the charts, all the yellow sheets quite often, and so you're still responsible to keep that confidential. And then the other thing is whenever you have a chart, make sure that you don't have their name visible on the chart. So if you're at the desk or at the table in the back, just make sure you turn that over so their name isn't visible. We just take different steps to keep confidentiality because it's really important to us and it's really important to our clients, and so we want to be careful about that.
Even turning the yellow sheets over in addition to the charts.
Yeah, because you can have two different clients or more out in the waiting room, and I just want to keep that confidential.
So when a consultant comes out with her client after they've had their session, I think both sites kind of have a different way of handling it. I know here in Benton Harbor sometimes the consultant will bring it out with her and sit it in the common area. But as a receptionist, I would really encourage you to get that yellow sheet from the consultant right away, because you will be the one responsible. If there is a receptionist there, you will be the one responsible to record all the things that the client got from the boutique that day. Sometimes a consultant may take it back with her because she wants to write her note right away, but I would say would you say it's a receptionist's responsibility to kind of keep track of where that yellow sheet is and to make sure that it got filled out for that day as well.
Yeah, that's a helpful distinction, I think.
Yeah.
And as a receptionist, you still have the responsibility to keep that confidential outside of the center. You have the same role as a consultant with the confidentiality. Again, so if you see them out in public, you don't acknowledge them first. You wait for them to acknowledge you. And the same thing if you see a client's family member in public, you want to not say to them, I saw so-and-so at LifePlan. That's confidential information and stays in the center. So if somebody, as a receptionist, if someone comes in or calls and asks for a specific client, the only way we can release client information is with written permission. So it may seem a little bit awkward if somebody comes in and says, hey, is my daughter here? You have to say, I'm sorry, everything we do here is confidential and I can't release that information without written permission. And the same thing if somebody calls and says, hey, is so-and-so a client with you? You have to just say, I'm sorry, I cannot release that information without written permission. So.
Another thing we thought of that's very, very important for some receptionists, you will have the responsibility of actually entering the chart information into our eKairos system, and you are going to be privy to all the details from the consultant's notes to letters we send out concerning a particular client, and you need to hold that in strict confidentiality, not discussing it with anyone. That's just so very important.
And while we're talking about confidentiality, I want to share a little bit with you about HIPAA. If you've ever been to a doctor, you've probably heard the term HIPAA. So I'm going to share how HIPAA relates to your role at LifePlan. In 1996, when the government wanted to put in place a nationwide health insurance program, they began to require doctors' offices to use electronic health records. And with that, they realized patients' personal health information might be susceptible to compromise. At that time, they came up with HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Portability there means the ability to be easily moved, and accountability means to be responsible for. I'm going to share 3 basic rules regarding HIPAA at LifePlan. I think this will help you understand and practice the HIPAA requirements we have at LifePlan, as we play an important role in protecting the privacy of our clients' and patients' information. The first rule is the HIPAA privacy rule. This rule establishes standards to protect PHI, also known as personal health information, held by medical facilities and the business associates who come in contact with that information. Examples of our business associates would be the companies that service our copy machine, our ultrasound machine, and also someone who might help us with our IT. The privacy rule gives individuals important rights with their protected personal health information. Patients are able to get a copy of their records, or they're able to ask for corrections in their information. This rule also permits use and disclosure of patient information. An example of that would be when we do our ultrasounds, that we're able to share that information with a patient's doctor. There's also certain legal situations where we might be required to share a patient's personal health information. Decisions concerning these matters would not be left up to the volunteers, but should be directed to the appropriate staff members. At this point, you might be wondering what constitutes PHI. It includes many common client identifiers such as a patient's name, their address, birth date, social security number, in any form, whether it's electronic, paper, or verbal. The PHI relates to any physical or mental health issue that a person might have, the provision of health care to an individual, and payment for provision of health care. Before sharing any of this information, please seek the counsel of a staff member. And a good rule to remember regarding this is, if it's when in doubt, don't do it. And one example I have of this actually happened at LifePlan. We happened to have a mom come in for an ultrasound appointment, and in the middle of that appointment, her boyfriend came into the staff kitchen, and volunteers and staff were having lunch that day, and he demanded to know if his girlfriend was in there. And thankfully, the staff calmly said to him that we weren't able to share that information, and he left. So just want to make you aware that that can happen, and we were thankful that it was handled well. The second rule is the HIPAA security rule. This rule specifies the safeguards that must be in place at LifePlan and with our business associates to ensure protection of PHI in confidentiality, in integrity, and availability. Confidentiality meaning our information is not given to unauthorized individuals. Integrity means our PHI is not altered or destroyed in any unauthorized manner. And availability means PHI is accessible on demand by authorized individuals. The security rule states that LifePlan must develop and implement reasonable and appropriate security measures by having policies and procedures in place to protect any PHI that we create, receive, maintain, and transmit. We have to identify and protect against any possible threats to this information. Please feel free to inform a staff member if you notice any activity that might put information at risk. We are responsible to ensure that our workers and volunteers comply with HIPAA rules. This is a continuing process at LifePlan as we're constantly reviewing and making changes in ministry practices, and we're frequently bringing on new volunteers. The staff does a yearly risk assessment to determine if safeguards are in place. There is also a basic yearly training that volunteers must sign off on to keep them up to date on HIPAA practices at LifePlan. The final rule I'm going to discuss is the HIPAA breach notification rule. This requires LifePlan to notify affected individuals, Health and Human Services, and in some cases the media in the case of a breach of unsecured PHI. The definition of a breach would be an impermissible use or disclosure of PHI that compromises the security or privacy of that information. It is a breach unless LifePlan can prove that there is a low probability the PHI has been compromised based on a risk assessment of several factors, such as the type of identifiers disclosed and the unauthorized person who used the information or to whom the disclosure was made. Common violations of this rule include lack of PHI safeguards in place, impermissible PHI use and disclosure, and also disclosing more than the minimum PHI necessary. I have a couple examples of a breach, and one includes a company having to pay $2.5 million when a laptop containing information for over 1,300 patients was stolen from an employee vehicle. The company had no policy and procedure in place regarding how to safeguard the PHI they were responsible for. A second example was a specialty clinic being fined $150,000 when an unencrypted thumb drive was stolen from a vehicle. This company did not have written policies in place concerning training their employees about the breach notification rule. I think it's important to end this talk on HIPAA practices at LifePlan with these examples so we realize confidentiality of PHI is a very serious matter. I also want volunteers to know that much of the burden of having HIPAA policy and practices in place falls on the LifePlan staff. Volunteers play a role in complying with the standards we set in place. We want to work as a team to make sure we have a safe and secure atmosphere at LifePlan as we minister to our clients and patients. It's a very important part of our testimony in the community. Thank you for your help in this area of service.
So congratulations, you've finished Module 1. So you need to make sure you have your paperwork complete and then go see the staff person or the shift leader who is overseeing your training and let them know you're finished.